I am Allison, 26 years old, and I work at a bank where I handle other people's money all day. Ironic, considering my own family treats my finances like a communal piggy bank. When my brand new gold credit card went missing, I never expected to see my parents driving a used car the next day, or my siblings flaunting expensive purchases. Their smug faces had no idea what was coming. Before I tell you how I handled this financial betrayal, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe to follow my journey of setting boundaries with the people who raised me. Growing up in the Turner household meant understanding early that financial boundaries were merely suggestions. My father, Harold, 53, works as a high school history teacher who believes strongly in living in the moment. His favorite phrase has always been, "You cannot take it with you when you die, Allie." That philosophy would be fine if he only applied it to his own money, but his carefree attitude extends to everyone else's resources too. My mother, Nancy, 50, works part-time at a local florist shop. She is the dreamer of the family, always talking about trips we should take or home renovations we need. The problem is her dreams rarely align with our actual budget. When her ideas get shot down due to financial reality, she tends to find creative ways to make them happen anyway, often involving borrowed money that somehow never gets repaid. My younger sister Zoe is 22 and currently finishing her fashion merchandising degree. She has been spoiled her entire life, partly because she is the baby girl, and partly because she mastered the art of manipulation at an early age. Zoe has never held a job for longer than 3 months, claiming each time that the work environment was toxic or the manager had unreasonable expectations. Despite her lack of income, she always has the latest designer bags and perfect manicures. Then there is my brother Noah, 19, who dropped out of community college after 1 semester to pursue his dream of becoming a professional gamer. He spends most days in his room with his expensive gaming setup, emerging only for food or when he needs money for new equipment or online subscriptions. My parents enable this behavior, calling it his career development phase. And then there is me. From the outside, I might seem like the boring one. No exciting dreams of travel or fashion, careers, or gaming glory. Just Allison, the practical one who went to state college on scholarships, studied finance, and now works as a loan officer at Pacific Northwest Bank. I pack my lunch daily, track every expense in a budgeting app, and actually read the terms and conditions before signing anything. For the past 4 years, I have been meticulously building my credit score. I started with a secured card with a $200 limit, never missed a payment, and gradually worked my way up. Last month, all that discipline finally paid off when I was approved for the Gold Reserve card with a $20,000 limit. The moment I received that heavy card in the mail, I felt a surge of pride. This was my ticket to the next phase of my financial journey, saving for a down payment on my own place. The card represented freedom to me. Freedom from our cramped family home where I still live to save money. Freedom from having to hear my father complain about how I am wasting my youth by being so careful with money. Freedom from watching my siblings get bailed out time and again while I worked twice as hard. This was not the first time my family had taken advantage of my financial responsibility. 3 years ago, I loaned my parents $2,000 to fix the roof after a storm. They promised to pay me back when the insurance reimbursement came through. The money arrived but somehow got spent on a family vacation to Florida instead. When I brought it up, my mother looked genuinely confused. "But you got to come on the trip too, honey. That was your repayment." Last year, Zoe borrowed my emergency credit card for what she called a true emergency regarding a job interview outfit. The $70 purchase somehow turned into a $500 shopping spree. When confronted, she cried and said she would pay me back when she got the job. She did not get the job, and I never saw that money again. Noah once asked to borrow $300 for a certification course that would help him break into professional gaming. I later discovered the money went toward a limited edition controller and gaming headset. When I confronted him, he shrugged and said, "The equipment is more important for my career right now. I will take the course later." After each of these incidents, I swore I would get better at establishing boundaries. I would practice saying no. I would stand up for myself. But something always held me back, that familiar guilt trip. We are family. We are supposed to help each other. But this time would be different. The gold reserve card was my fresh start, my boundary line in the sand. I had big plans for it, using it strategically to earn points while paying it off in full each month. I had even created a spreadsheet calculating how long it would take to save enough for a modest condo downtown. 24 months of disciplined spending and saving, and I could finally have a place of my own. The night I received the card, I made the mistake of mentioning it at dinner. I saw the way my father's eyebrows raised when I mentioned the credit limit. I noticed my mother's sudden interest in my financial achievements. I caught the calculating looks from Zoe and Noah. Something in their expressions should have warned me, but I was too busy feeling proud of myself. "Just be careful with that thing," my father said, forking a piece of pot roast into his mouth. "Those banks are predatory. They want you to max it out." "I know how credit cards work, Dad," I replied. "I literally explain them to people for a living." "Well, look at Miss Financial Expert," Zoe teased. "Are you going to start flying first class now?" "No, I am going to continue living within my means and building my credit history," I said. "So that someday, I can qualify for a mortgage." Noah snorted. "Why buy a house when you could travel the world? You are so boring, Allie." Their reactions were typical, but something felt different this time. The way they looked at that card almost hungrily. I should have known then what was coming. I should have been more careful. That night I put the card in my wallet and tucked my wallet into my purse, hanging it on the hook inside my bedroom door. I never imagined I would need more security than that in my own home. I never thought I would need to protect myself from the people who were supposed to protect me. How wrong I was. The following Monday morning, I was running late for work. I rushed through my morning routine, grabbing my purse on the way out. It was not until my lunch break that I opened my wallet to pay for my sandwich and realized my gold reserve card was missing. At first, I thought I had misplaced it somewhere in my purse. I emptied the contents on my desk, sorting through receipts, lip balms, and loose change. Nothing. A knot formed in my stomach as I checked every pocket twice. "Everything okay, Allison?" My coworker Brooke peered over the cubicle divider. "I cannot find my new credit card," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I am sure I put it in my wallet on Friday." "Could you have left it at a store?" she suggested. I shook my head. "I have not used it yet. I was saving it for planned purchases." A terrible suspicion began forming in my mind, but I pushed it away. Surely my family would not have taken my card without asking. That would be crossing a line even for them. During my afternoon break, I called the credit card company to check if there had been any activity on the account. The customer service representative was friendly and efficient. "Yes, Miss Turner, I do see a transaction from yesterday. A payment of $8,000 to Riverdale Auto Sales." My heart dropped. $8,000. "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am. It was processed yesterday at 2:14 p.m. Would you like to report this as fraudulent activity?" My mind raced. If I reported it as fraud, an investigation would be opened. If my family had indeed taken my card, they could face serious consequences. Despite everything, I could not bring myself to potentially get them in legal trouble without talking to them first. "No, not yet," I said finally. "I need to check something first. Thank you." I ended the call and sat motionless at my desk. $8,000. For a car. The pieces were coming together and I felt sick. I remembered my parents mentioning they needed to replace Dad's old sedan soon, but I never imagined they would use my credit card to do it. The rest of the workday passed in a blur. I could barely focus on my tasks, my mind constantly returning to that $8,000 charge and what it meant. By the time I drove home, anxiety had given way to anger. How dare they take my card without asking? How dare they make such a large purchase without my permission? When I pulled into our driveway, I spotted it immediately, a navy blue Toyota Camry, probably about 5 years old, parked where my father's rusted Oldsmobile used to sit. It looked clean and well-maintained, certainly worth about $8,000. I stormed into the house, finding my parents in the kitchen preparing dinner. My mother was chopping vegetables while my father sat at the table reading a newspaper. They looked up as I entered, their expressions shifting from welcome to wariness when they saw my face. "Is there something you want to tell me?" I asked, my voice tight. They exchanged glances. My father cleared his throat. "I guess you noticed the new car." "I noticed the $8,000 charge on my credit card," I said, "the card that mysteriously disappeared from my wallet." My mother put down her knife. "Honey, we were going to tell you. We just needed a reliable car, and your father has that conference in Seattle next week." "You took my card without asking and spent $8,000, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "Do you have any idea how serious that is?" "It is not like we stole it," my father said defensively. "We were going to pay you back. It is just a temporary loan." "A loan requires asking permission first," I pointed out. "What you did was theft." My mother's eyes welled with tears. "Allison, do not be so dramatic. We are family. We help each other out." "Help each other out? When have you ever helped me out financially? When have you ever paid me back for anything?" "We gave you life," my father said, his tone hardening. "We raised you, fed you, clothed you. And now you are accusing us of theft because we borrowed your card for a necessary purchase." I felt like I was going to explode. The audacity of using my childhood as leverage against financial theft was almost too much to bear. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I need my card back, now." "We do not have it with us," my mother said quickly. "I think it is in the other purse. I will look for it tomorrow." "You think you take my card, spend $8,000, and you cannot even keep track of where it is? Why are you making such a big deal about this?" my father asked. "It is just a credit card. You do not have to pay it all at once. That is the whole point of credit." That statement revealed so much about their financial mindset that I was momentarily speechless. Did they really not understand that credit card debt was still debt? That interest would accrue, that this could damage my credit score? "I worked hard for that credit line," I said, finally. "I had plans for it. Responsible plans." "Oh yes, your condo fund," my mother said with a dismissive wave. "Honey, you are 26. You should be enjoying life, not obsessing over mortgage rates." "This is my financial future you are messing with," I insisted. "I expect you to pay this off immediately." "Of course we will pay it," my father said soothingly. "Just give us a few months. We will make the minimum payments until we can save up." Minimum payments on $8,000 at 22% interest. They had no clue. "I want the card back tonight," I said firmly, "and we are not done talking about this." I walked out of the kitchen before they could respond, my mind racing with calculations. How much would this set back my plans? How long would it take them to actually pay this off, if ever? And most importantly, how could I have been so careless with something so important to me? As I climbed the stairs to my room, I could not help but feel a sense of betrayal so deep it made my chest ache. These were the people who were supposed to teach me about responsibility and respect. Instead, they were showing me exactly what not to do. Little did I know the car was just the beginning. The worst was yet to come. The next morning, I woke up determined to get my card back and figure out a plan to deal with the unauthorized purchase. I had spent half the night researching my options, from filing a police report, which I could not bring myself to do, to taking my parents to small claims court, which seemed extreme to Lear. I was leaning toward a written repayment agreement with strict terms and deadlines. As I headed downstairs for breakfast, I heard excited voices from the kitchen. I paused on the staircase, listening. "It is gorgeous, Zoe. I cannot believe you found it on sale," my mother sounded delighted. "The limit is only 1,000, but that is enough for now. I am going to build my credit just like Allison did." I rounded the corner to find Zoe sitting at the kitchen table, proudly displaying a shiny new credit card to our mother. It was a basic starter card from Capital One, nothing special, but Zoe was beaming like she had just been handed the keys to a kingdom. "Morning," I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "New card?" "Yes," Zoe grinned. "I got approved yesterday. Now I can start building my credit history too." That's great, I said cautiously. Just be careful with it. Credit cards are a big responsibility. She rolled her eyes. Yes, Mom, number 2. I know how credit works. Something about her confidence struck me as odd. Zoe had been rejected for credit cards multiple times in the past due to her non-existent credit history and sporadic employment. What had changed? How did you get approved? I asked. Last time you applied, they turned you down. She shrugged, suddenly very interested in her cereal. I guess my application looked better this time. Before I could press further, the back door banged open, and Noah walked in, helmet under his arm and a huge smile on his face. Morning, family, he announced cheerfully. Beautiful day for a ride. A ride, I echoed. On what? My new bike, he said proudly. Come see. Confused, I followed him outside to the driveway where a gleaming black and red Kawasaki sport bike sat next to the new Toyota. It looked brand new and expensive. Where did you get that? I asked, though I was starting to get a sinking feeling in my stomach. Found a sweet deal online, he said vaguely. Guy needed to sell it fast. Got it for a steal at $3,000. Noah, who had never held a steady job somehow, had $3,000 for a motorcycle. The pieces were starting to come together, and I did not like the picture they were forming. Noah, where did you get $3,000? I asked directly. He suddenly became very interested in adjusting his helmet strap. I saved up. From what income? Look, what does it matter? He said defensively. I got a good deal and now I have reliable transportation. I went back inside and headed straight for my laptop. Logging into my credit card account, I scrolled through the recent transactions. There, it was $8,000 to Riverdale Auto Sales. But there was more. A transaction for $2,999 to Valley Motorsports, another for $1,200 to Nordstrom, $700 to Best Buy, $600 to Apple. The charges went on and on. In total, they had spent over $15,000 of my $20,000 credit line in just 2 days. I felt physically ill. It was not just the car. They had gone on a full shopping spree with my card. And based on what I had just seen, I had a pretty good idea where those purchases had gone. The motorcycle, Zoe's new clothes, and if I checked Noah's room, I suspected I would find new gaming equipment. I confronted them that evening when everyone was home for dinner. I laid the printed credit card statement on the table, watching their faces as they realized they had been caught. Would anyone care to explain this? I asked, my voice deadly calm. My parents exchanged nervous glances. Zoe suddenly found her plate fascinating. Noah shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We were going to tell you, my father began. Tell me what? That you stole my card and maxed it out on luxury items, that you spent $15,000 without my permission. It was not like that, my mother protested. We saw an opportunity to help everyone in the family at once. Your father needed a car, Noah needed transportation for job interviews, and Zoe needed professional clothes for her career. And the charges at Best Buy and Apple, I asked. Let me guess, Noah needed gaming equipment for his career too. Noah at least had the decency to look ashamed. You are overreacting, my father said. It is just credit. It is not real money. I stared at him in disbelief. Not real money. Do you think the credit card company sends monopoly bills when the statement comes due? This is real debt that has to be paid back with interest. We will help with the payments, my mother said weakly. How, with what money, Dad? Your car died because you could not afford to maintain it? Noah has no job. Zoe has never kept employment for more than 3 months. Where exactly is this money coming from? Silence fell around the table. The truth was, they had no plan. They never had a plan. They had seen a credit line and treated it like free money with no thought to the consequences. I want my card back. Now. My voice left no room for argument. Zoe disappeared upstairs and returned with my gold reserve card, reluctantly handing it over. I inspected it closely, noticing small scratches that had not been there before. "You know what the worst part is," I said, looking at each of them. "It is not the money. It is the complete lack of respect. You did not even ask me. You just took something that was not yours and used it however you wanted." "Come on, Allie," Noah said with a nervous laugh. "Relax. It is not that serious. The card has got like $10 left on it anyway." $10, I repeated incredulously. "You spent nearly my entire credit line and you think that is funny." "We are family," my father said, as if that explained everything. Families share. I looked down at the card in my hand, and despite everything, I felt a small smile forming. Something was not right about the card. The weight was off. The color was slightly different than I remembered. And suddenly it hit me. This might not be my actual gold reserve card after all. I excused myself from the dinner table, taking the card with me. In my room, I closed the door and examined the card more carefully. The logo was right, the design was similar, but something felt off about it. The embossing of my name seemed flatter than I remembered, and the holographic security feature looked different. Then it struck me. 2 weeks ago, when I was first approved for the gold reserve card, the bank had sent me a promotional packet that included a dummy card, a non-functional replica, meant to show what the real card would look like. The actual card had arrived separately via secure courier a few days later. I remembered now I had been so excited about the real card that I had stored the dummy in my desk drawer and forgotten about it. Could it be possible that my family had taken the replica, not the real card? I rushed to my closet where I kept a small, fireproof safe hidden behind my winter boots. Only Brooke from work knew about this safe, where I stored my most important documents and valuables. With trembling fingers, I dialed the combination and opened it. There, nestled between my passport and birth certificate, was my actual gold reserve card, untouched and pristine. I sat on the edge of my bed, card in hand, as the realization washed over me. They had not taken my real card. They had taken a worthless piece of plastic with no actual credit line attached to it. All those purchases they thought they had made, all that money they thought they had spent, none of it was real. A laugh bubbled up from deep in my chest, a mixture of relief and disbelief. How had they not realized? How had they managed to convince themselves they had made actual purchases with a dummy card? Then I remembered something else. The day after I received my real card, I had brought both the real card and the dummy to work, intending to shred the dummy in the office shredder. During lunch, I had shown Brooke both cards, explaining the difference. "These replicas are getting so realistic," she had commented. "Someone could almost mistake it for the real thing." We had even joked about how the dummy cards were being made increasingly realistic to prevent fraud, with all the standard features of a real card, including the correct bank logo, holographic security images, and even the member service phone number on the back. "But it is not actually connected to any account," I had explained. "If someone tried to use it, the transaction would be declined immediately." Only now did I realize that my family had never actually used the card for any purchases. They had likely just pretended to make the purchases to justify their new possessions. The car, the motorcycle, the clothes, the electronics, they must have acquired these items some other way and then claimed to have used my card as a convenient explanation. But why? The answer came to me almost immediately: to test my boundaries, to see how far they could push me, how much they could take before I pushed back. It was a test. And I had been failing it for years by always giving in, always forgiving, always allowing them to cross my boundaries without consequences. A new emotion began to replace my relief: determination. This was an opportunity, a chance to finally teach my family about respect and boundaries in a way they would never forget. I could tell them the truth, immediately expose their lies and manipulations. But something stopped me. If I revealed the truth now, they would be embarrassed, perhaps momentarily remorseful, but would they really learn anything? Would they understand the gravity of what they had attempted to do? For this lesson to truly sink in, they needed to feel the consequences of their actions, even if those actions had been based on a lie. They needed to understand what it would really mean to steal someone else's credit and rack up thousands in debt. A plan began to form in my mind. I would not tell them about the dummy card, not yet. Instead, I would let them believe their actions had real consequences. I would create a scenario where they would have to face the reality of credit card debt, the stress of collections calls, the fear of ruined credit scores. Only then, when they truly understood the seriousness of financial theft, would I reveal the truth. It was manipulative, yes, but after years of being manipulated by them, perhaps this was the only language they would understand. And unlike their manipulation, mine came from a place of wanting to help them grow, to understand responsibility, to respect boundaries, not just my own, but everyone else's in their lives. I tucked my real gold reserve card back into the safe and returned the dummy card to my wallet. Downstairs, my family was still at the dinner table, an uncomfortable silence hanging over them. I sat down, composed and calm. "I have been thinking," I said carefully. "What is done is done. The card is maxed out. Now we need to figure out how to deal with the consequences." They exchanged relieved glances, clearly having expected a much stronger reaction from me. "So you are not mad?" Zoe asked tentatively. "I am disappointed," I said truthfully. "But right now, I am more concerned about how we are going to handle the payments. The minimum payment on $15,000 will be around $300 per month, and that is just to keep the account current, not to actually pay it down." "$300 a month is doable," my father said quickly. "We can all chip in." "And what about the interest?" I asked. "At 22% APR, that is over $3,000 in interest per year." Their faces fell as the reality of credit card debt began to sink in. "I did not realize the interest was so high," my mother said quietly. "Most people do not until they are trapped in debt," I replied. "That is why responsible credit use is so important." I took out a notebook and began writing up a payment plan, assigning contributions from each family member based on their income or potential income. My father and mother would each contribute $100 monthly. Noah would need to get a job and contribute $50. Zoe would contribute $50 from her part-time retail position. "This is just to cover the minimum payment," I explained. "At this rate, it will take over 20 years to pay off the debt. If we want to pay it off sooner, everyone will need to contribute more." The gravity of the situation was finally hitting them. 20 years of payments for a few days of impulsive spending. My father looked particularly shaken, the financial reality contradicting his casual, "it is not real money" attitude from earlier. "I will start looking for a second job," he said quietly. "I can pick up more shifts at the flower shop," my mother added. Noah and Zoe were unusually silent, the reality of having to contribute to this debt clearly not what they had expected. As I left the table that night, I felt a mixture of guilt and satisfaction. The guilt came from the deception, from letting them believe they had created a real financial crisis. But the satisfaction came from seeing the first signs of real understanding in their eyes. For perhaps the first time, they were beginning to grasp the consequences of financial irresponsibility. The lesson was just beginning, but already I could see it taking hold. And that gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, our family dynamic could change for the better. Over the next 2 weeks, I carefully orchestrated my plan to teach my family about financial responsibility. The first step was to enlist help from my coworker and friend Brooke, who agreed to play the role of a credit card collections agent. "Are you sure about this?" she asked when I explained my plan over lunch. "It seems a little extreme." "They need to understand the real consequences of credit card theft," I said. "And they need to learn to respect boundaries. If they think they can take my card without permission and face no consequences, what is to stop them from doing it again with my real card next time?" Brooke reluctantly agreed, and the next day my father received his first collections call at work. "Mr. Turner, this is Brooke Williams from Gold Reserve Card Services. I am calling about the recent activity on your daughter's account and the upcoming payment due." My father came home that evening looking worried. "I got a call from the credit card company today," he told me. "They said the payment is due next week." "Yes, I know," I replied calmly. "That is how credit cards work. You spend the money, then you have to pay it back." But it is almost $400 for the minimum payment, he said, his voice strained. I thought you said it would be $300. The interest started accruing immediately, I explained. And there are late fees because the payment for last month was missed. This was not true, of course, but my father did not know that. He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed for the first time. I will figure it out, he muttered. Maybe I can pick up some tutoring gigs after school. The next day, it was my mother's turn. Brooke called her at the florist shop, identifying herself as a credit supervisor, concerned about unusual activity on the account. Mrs. Turner, we have noticed some large purchases recently that do not align with the cardholder's usual spending patterns. As this could indicate fraudulent activity, we wanted to verify these charges with you. My mother came home that afternoon with worry lines etched around her eyes. The credit card company called me today, she told me as she chopped vegetables for dinner with more force than necessary. They asked about the charges. I did not know what to say. What did you tell them? I asked. I said they were authorized, she admitted. I could not tell them the truth that we took your card without asking. They might press charges. I nodded solemnly. Credit card fraud is a serious offense. It can result in fines and even jail time in severe cases. Her knife paused mid-chop. Jail time, surely not for family members borrowing a card. The law does not make exceptions for family, I said, which was true. Unauthorized use is unauthorized use. She resumed chopping, but her movements were jerky, anxious. We will make this right, Allison. I promise. Your father is looking into a weekend job and I am going to ask for more hours at the shop. Next came Zoe. I arranged for Brooke to call her while we were having coffee at a cafe discussing her new wardrobe. Is this Zoe Turner? This is Brooke Williams from the credit reporting agency. I am calling because we have received notification of potential credit fraud involving your information. Zoe's face drained of color as she took the call. What? No, there must be some mistake, she stammered. When she hung up, her hands were shaking. That was the credit bureau, she said, voice trembling. They said my credit score might be affected because my name was associated with potential fraud. What did you tell them? I asked. I denied everything, she whispered. Allison, I cannot have a fraud mark on my credit report. I will never be able to get an apartment or a car loan. Actions have consequences, Zoe, I said gently. When you participate in unauthorized credit, it affects your financial reputation. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse in my sister's eyes. I never thought about it that way. I just saw it as borrowing from you, not as something that could follow me for years. Noah was the last to receive a call. Brooke posed as a motorcycle financing agent, calling to verify the source of funds for his recent purchase. Mr. Turner, we have received information that the funds used to purchase your Kawasaki may have come from a compromised credit account. We will need to verify the legitimacy of this transaction within 48 hours, or we may be forced to repossess the vehicle. Noah burst into my room that evening, panic written across his face. Allie, they are going to take my bike. Some financing company called and said the purchase was flagged as fraudulent. What did you expect? I asked calmly. You used someone else's credit card without permission. That is fraud. But it is your card. You are not going to press charges against your own brother, are you? I looked at him steadily. I did not make the purchase, Noah. As far as the credit card company knows, someone stole my card and used it fraudulently. They are just following standard procedure. What am I supposed to do? I cannot lose that bike. There were actual tears in his eyes now. The motorcycle, unlike his usual gaming purchases, clearly meant something to him. You could get a job and start making legitimate payments on it, I suggested. Show that you are taking responsibility for your actions. A job like a real one, he looked horrified at the thought. Yes, Noah, a real job, like most adults have. He left my room, subdued the reality of his situation finally sinking in. The family called an emergency meeting that weekend. They gathered in the living room, all wearing expressions of stress and worry. My father had printed out job listings from the local newspaper. My mother had her work schedule spread out on the coffee table with additional hours highlighted in yellow. Zoe had brought information about donating plasma twice a week for extra cash. Noah had miraculously printed out an application for the local grocery store. "We need to figure this out as a family," my father began, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "We made a terrible mistake taking Allison's card. And now we need to make it right." "I have worked out our budget," my mother added, pushing forward a sheet of paper covered in calculations. "If we cut out all non-essentials, we can come up with $500 a month toward the debt." "I can sell some of my designer stuff online," Zoe offered. "I probably have a few $1,000s worth of clothes and bags I rarely use." "And I can sell my gaming PC," Noah said reluctantly. "It is worth at least $1,000. I watched them in silence, amazed at the transformation. These were the same people who just 2 weeks ago had laughed off my concerns and treated my credit line as a communal resource. Now they were offering genuine sacrifices to make amends. "What about the car?" I asked. "And the motorcycle?" My parents exchanged glances. "We have discussed it," my father said slowly. "We are going to sell the Toyota and go back to using public transportation. Your mother can take the bus to work, and I can carpool with other teachers." "And I am going to sell the bike," Noah added, looking pained. "I never should have bought it in the first place. Not like that." I felt a twinge of guilt at their sacrifices, knowing that the debt they were so worried about did not actually exist. But I reminded myself that the lesson they were learning was real and valuable, even if the debt was not. "Those are serious sacrifices," I acknowledged. "Are you sure?" "We do not have a choice," my mother said firmly. "We cannot leave you stuck with this debt. It is not fair and it is not right." "It is more than the money," my father added, surprising me. "It is about trust. We betrayed your trust, Allison, and we need to earn it back." For the first time in recent memory, I saw my family taking responsibility for their actions without excuses or deflection. They were facing consequences head-on and making difficult choices. It was exactly the lesson I had hoped they would learn, though I had not expected it to happen so quickly or so thoroughly. As they continued discussing payment plans and budgeting strategies, I wondered if I should end the charade now, tell them the truth about the dummy card. But something told me to wait. The lesson was taking root, but it needed time to fully develop. They needed to experience not just the initial panic, but the sustained effort of working together to solve a problem they had created. So I stayed silent, listening to their plans, offering suggestions when asked, and quietly marveling at how quickly priorities can shift when reality comes knocking. 3 weeks after discovering the dummy card, I decided it was time to reveal the truth. The lesson had gone on long enough. My family had demonstrated genuine remorse and had taken concrete steps toward making amends. My father had started tutoring after school 3 days a week. My mother had picked up weekend shifts at the flower shop. Zoe had sold nearly $2,000 worth of designer items online. And most surprisingly, Noah had not only applied for but had actually been hired at the local grocery store as a stalker. More importantly, I had noticed subtle shifts in their attitudes. They had stopped making comments about my financial caution being excessive. They had begun consulting me about their own finances, asking about budgeting strategies and savings plans, and they had become vigilant about respecting my personal space and belongings, always asking permission before borrowing anything, even something as small as a phone charger. I invited everyone to a family dinner, cooking my mother's favorite lasagna recipe as a peace offering of sorts. As we sat around the table, I could sense their tension. These family dinners had become strategy sessions about debt repayment, not the relaxed affairs they once were. "I have something important to tell you all," I began after we had finished eating. "It is about the credit card." They exchanged nervous glances. "Is there a problem with the payment plan?" my father asked. "We are still working on getting that first payment together." "No, there is no problem with the payment plan," I said. "Because there is no debt to pay." Confused looks passed between them. What do you mean? My mother asked. I reached into my purse and pulled out two identical-looking gold reserve cards, placing them side by side on the table. This one, I said, pointing to the card on the left, is the dummy card that came in my welcome packet. It is the one you took from my wallet. It is not connected to any account and cannot be used for purchases. I pointed to the card on the right, and this is my actual gold reserve card. It has been in my safe the entire time. It has never been used. Silence fell over the table as they processed what I was saying. My father was the first to understand. You mean, all this time, we did not actually use your card. The debt is not real. There is no debt, I confirmed. No car purchase, no motorcycle, no shopping sprees. The card you took could not have been used for any transactions. But the car, my mother said slowly. The motorcycle. Where did those come from? I raised an eyebrow. That is what I would like to know. You tell me. More uncomfortable glances were exchanged. Finally, my father sighed deeply. The car was from my brother James, he admitted. He sold it to me for $800, not $8,000. I have been making payments to him directly. And the motorcycle, I prompted, looking at Noah. He squirmed in his seat. It is actually really old, he confessed. I bought it broken from Petey's dad for $300 and fixed it up with parts from the junkyard. I just made it look nice with a new paint job and some polish. And your new wardrobe, I asked Zoe. She had the grace to look embarrassed. Mostly thrift store finds and clothes borrowed from friends for job interviews. I just let everyone assume they were new. And the credit card, the one you were showing Mom at breakfast? A prepaid card, she admitted. I put my babysitting money on it. It is not a real credit card. I sat back in my chair, taking it all in. So you all pretended to make expensive purchases with my card, knowing you had not actually spent the money just to, what? Test how I would react. It was not like that, my father protested. We took what we thought was your card, intending to use it. When transactions kept getting declined, we assumed it was because of daily spending limits or fraud protection. We were too embarrassed to tell you it wasn't working. So you made up stories about successful purchases instead, I finished for him. And when I confronted you about it, you doubled down on the lie rather than admitting the truth. They all looked appropriately ashamed. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. We are so sorry, Allison. Not just for taking the card, but for lying about it afterward. You were right about us not respecting your boundaries. Why did you go along with my payment plan, I asked. Why sell your things and get extra jobs for a debt that did not exist? Because we knew we had done something wrong, my father said quietly. Even if the card did not work, the intent was there. We were trying to make amends for what we had attempted to do, not just what we actually did. And then it just snowballed, Zoe added. The more serious you were about the debt, the harder it became to admit we had lied. Plus, Noah said the collections calls made it seem so real. I felt a twinge of guilt at that. About those calls, I said slowly. They were not real either. My friend Brooke was making them as a favor to me. Their expressions shifted from shame to confusion then, to dawning understanding. You knew all along, my father asked. About the dummy card. About our lies. I nodded. I figured it out the night you returned the card to me. But by then I had realized something important. You all needed to understand the consequences of what you had tried to do. If I had just called you out on the failed attempt, would anything have really changed? So this whole thing has been a lesson, my mother said slowly. You were teaching us about responsibility. And boundaries, I added. And respect. There was a long silence as they absorbed this. I braced myself for anger, for accusations of manipulation or overreaction. Instead, my father began to laugh, softly at first, then louder until tears were streaming down his face. What is so funny? I asked, confused by his reaction. All of it, he gasped between laughs. Us thinking we were pulling one over on you with a card that did not work. You letting us believe we had created a huge debt. All of us scrambling to fix a problem that never existed. It is like something out of a sitcom. His laughter was contagious. Soon my mother joined in, then Zoe, then Noah, and finally me. We laughed until our sides hurt the tension of the past weeks dissolving in the absurdity of the situation. When the laughter finally subsided, my father wiped his eyes and looked at me with new respect. You outplayed us, Allie. Fair and square. I did not do it to win, I said, seriously. I did it because I love you all, and I wanted you to understand something important before it caused real damage. We get it now, Noah said, surprisingly mature. I actually like my job at the grocery store. I never would have applied if not for this whole mess. And I have learned so much about budgeting from this experience, Zoe added. I never realized how careless I was being with money until I had to really think about it. We are proud of you, Allison, my mother said softly. Not just for your financial responsibility, but for caring enough about this family to teach us a difficult lesson. So what happens now? My father asked. Do we all go back to normal? I shook my head. I do not think we can go back, nor should we. But we can go forward with new understanding and respect for each other. And new boundaries, my mother added, understanding in her eyes. Exactly, I agreed. New boundaries freely given and respectfully maintained. As we cleared the dinner table together, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The deception had been uncomfortable for me against my natural inclination toward honesty, but seeing the genuine change in my family made it worthwhile. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that stick the most. And as for my gold reserve card, I decided to keep it in my safe for now. Not out of fear that they would take it again, but as a reminder of how far we had come and how valuable trust really is once it is earned. 3 months have passed since our family dinner revelation, and the changes in our household have been nothing short of remarkable. What began as a scheme to teach my family about financial boundaries has blossomed into a complete transformation of our family dynamic. My father Harold has continued tutoring after school even though there is no imaginary debt to pay off. He has discovered that he enjoys the one-on-one interaction with students who need extra help, and the additional income has allowed him to start his own emergency fund for the first time in his life. Just last week, he proudly showed me his savings account balance, which had crossed the $1,000 mark. I never realized how good it feels to have a financial cushion, he told me. All these years, I have been living paycheck to paycheck out of habit, not necessity. He has become an advocate for financial education among his fellow teachers, even organizing a workshop at school about retirement planning and investment strategies. The man who once dismissed my budgeting as wasting your youth now tracks every expense in a spreadsheet of his own design. My mother Nancy has embraced minimalism in a way none of us expected. After selling some of her accumulated possessions to contribute to the non-existent debt, she discovered she did not miss those things at all. She has been systematically decluttering our home, selling or donating items that no longer serve a purpose, and using some of the proceeds to take a community college course in floral design to advance her career. I always thought happiness came from acquiring things, she confessed to me over coffee one morning. But it turns out there is a certain freedom in owning less and appreciating what you have more. She has replaced her dream board of luxury vacation destinations with a more modest but achievable travel plan with specific savings goals and timelines. Next summer, she and my father will be taking their first fully funded vacation to the Grand Canyon, something they have wanted to do for years but never prioritized saving for. Perhaps the most dramatic change has been in my siblings. Zoe has embraced thrift shopping as not just a necessity, but a creative challenge, even starting a small social media following where she showcases budget-friendly fashion finds. She has maintained her habits of selling unused items online, putting the proceeds into a savings account earmarked for her first apartment after graduation. I used to think my worth was tied to having the newest designer items, she told me. But now I realize creativity and financial independence are much more valuable than labels. She has also started a part-time bookkeeping position at a local boutique, putting her fashion knowledge to work while gaining valuable financial experience. For her birthday last month, instead of asking for expensive gifts, she requested contributions to her first-month apartment rent fund. Noah, to everyone's surprise, including his own, has thrived in his grocery store job. He started as a stalker but quickly moved up to the produce department, where his attention to detail and surprising work ethic caught the manager's attention. He still enjoys gaming, but now it is a reward after meeting his responsibilities rather than his entire focus. Having a real job made me realize I do not want to be a professional gamer anymore, he confided in me recently. The competition is too fierce and the career span is too short. I am thinking about studying business management instead. He sold his gaming PC as planned, using part of the money to buy a more modest laptop for schoolwork and saving the rest toward community college courses. He still has the motorcycle, but now he has properly registered it and pays for the insurance himself with his earnings. As for me, the experience has been healing in ways I never anticipated. For years, I had felt like an outsider in my own family, the responsible one who was never taken seriously. Now I find myself respected and even consulted on important family decisions. The boundaries I fought so hard to establish are now honored without me having to enforce them. We have instituted a monthly family financial meeting where we discuss our goals, share our progress, and help each other stay accountable. These meetings, which would have been unimaginable 6 months ago, have become a cornerstone of our new family dynamic. Last week, I finally achieved the goal I had set when I first received my Gold Reserve card. I made a down payment on a small condo downtown. It is nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom with a small balcony, but it is mine. When I shared the news with my family, their pride was genuine and their congratulations heartfelt. "We want to help you furnish it," my mother said. "Not with money," she added quickly, seeing my expression. "With our time and skills. Your father can help paint, I can make curtains. Zoe has an eye for decorating on a budget. And Noah is surprisingly good at assembling furniture." Their offer touched me deeply. This was what family support was supposed to look like, not taking without asking, but freely giving what they could in a way that respected my independence. The dummy credit card that started it all now sits framed on my desk at work, a reminder that sometimes the most valuable lessons come disguised as mistakes. Brooke laughs every time she sees it, still amazed at how well our plan worked. "You could have just told them they crossed a line," she said to me once. "Why go through such an elaborate scheme?" The answer is simple but profound, because telling someone they are wrong rarely changes behavior, but allowing them to experience the consequences of their actions can transform their perspective entirely. My family did not need a lecture on financial responsibility. They needed to feel the weight of debt, the stress of payment plans, the reality of sacrifices required to make amends. The lesson extended beyond finances to something more fundamental: respect. Respect for boundaries. Respect for property. Respect for the autonomy of others, even those closest to us. Family does not mean unlimited access or unquestioned entitlement. Rather, true family means supporting each other's growth even when that growth requires uncomfortable truths and difficult lessons. As I prepare to move into my new condo next week, I find myself reflecting on how far we have come. The distance is not measured in dollars saved or debt avoided, but in the strengthened bonds between us, in the mutual respect that now forms the foundation of our relationships. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to establish are with those we love the most. And sometimes the most valuable gift we can give our loved ones is not endless accommodation, but the courage to hold them accountable. In teaching my family this lesson, I have also learned something vital about myself: that I am strong enough to stand my ground, wise enough to do so with compassion, and loved enough to be respected for it. Have you ever had to teach someone in your life a difficult lesson about boundaries? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences and lessons learned the hard way. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the strongest boundaries create the healthiest relationships.